Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and this is week 1 of New Worlds November, where I will be reading terrestrial science fiction stories. And the first story I read is collected in Again, Dangerous Visions, edited by Harlan Ellison. This book was published in 1972, and the story I read was In the Barn by Piers Anthony. And let me say, it's a sketchy story. Piers Anthony is known to be a little pervy, and this story goes way into pervy territory. And maybe some people will not like that because it's weird. Well, in this story, Earth has developed a way to jump into alternate worlds and dimensions of Earth. And they call our Earth, Earth Prime, because no other Earth they have visited has developed this technology to hop into other dimensions. So in their mind, we're the best. So there's a character named Hitch, and his job is to investigate these new dimensions to see if they are worthy of trading with and talking with. Because there's some strange things that go on in these alternate dimensions. And these dimensions can be very close to Earth. He mentions that in some cases, these alternate Earths have the same president of the United States. And when these two presidents talk to each other, it gets kind of funky because you're talking to yourself, sort of. Well, early investigators have noticed that there are no mammals in this dimension, but there are large dairy barns everywhere. And so Hitch is assigned to go investigate what is in the barn. And what he finds is that human beings, women, are being used as dairy cows. Now, these women do not have the intelligence of normal women. And their hands are not quite as normal as human hands. But Hitch is experienced on how to handle dairy cows. And he feels sort of sorry for these cows because they are suffering. Their udders, their breasts are full of milk, and they need to be milked. So he decides to milk the women. Yeah, I told you it's a little sketchy. And then he has to take one of these dairy cows out to be mated with a bull, which of course is a human male, equally not as intelligent as a human should be. So I'll leave the story there. And for this story, there are 13 prompts that we can go for. And this story definitely takes the fourth prompt, alternate world dimensions. I'm also going to claim it takes the 12th prompt, 12 for political, because in the afterword that Piers Anthony wrote for this story, he talks about cruelty. Because in this story, it's obvious that humans are being treated very cruelly and inhumanely. But he tells us that what happens to these women in these barns is exactly what happens in our Earth to real dairy cows. And if we are cruel to the women, or if the characters are cruel to the women in this alternate world, why are we not cruel to dairy cows? That's a question. And I think Piers Anthony is going for the fact is that we treat our animals in this world very cruelly. And maybe we should be a little bit kinder to our animals. So that is In the Barn by Piers Anthony. Next two stories come from the Big Book of Science Fiction, edited by Anne and Jeff Vandermeer. And the first story that I read out here was The Lake Was Full of Artificial Things by Karen Joy Fowler. And in this story, there is a middle-aged woman, probably a little over 50. And she is visiting, let's just say, a psychologist to sort of go over her issues. And she does have issues because when she was in her early 20s in the 1970s, the man she loved died in the Vietnam War. And the therapy that the psychologist has created for her is a form of artificial intelligence where they take memories, this woman's memories, and create a simulacrum of her boyfriend who died 30 years ago. And so she can interact with him and talk with him as if he were real, even though he is not real. He is just a creation from her own memories. However, this simulacrum starts talking about things that are not in her own memory. It's as if this simulacrum has a life of its own. And she gets out of the first therapy session, talks about it, and the psychologist says, well, we're never doing that again. Well, they do it again. And the simulacrum starts talking about more things that the woman could not possibly know. So we'll leave it there. But there is a question that comes up in this about cruelty and cowardice, and how one of those two can be forgiven and the other one cannot. And now I did not pick these stories to go together in the theme of cruelty. They just sort of happened to juxtapose together as I read them. And it's an interesting little short story about memory. And as for the prompts that it can meet, it can, let's just say it can meet, I have the 13 here. I'm going to go with, it can meet a little bit of war and military, because there is a scene at the end of the story that takes place directly in the Vietnam War, as told by the simulacrum, and what it means to be a soldier in that war and how it can affect the soldier. So we'll say that's a war and military theme. I don't think it covers any of the other themes. The other short story that I read out of here is The Monster, by Gerald Klein. It is translated from the French. It was written sometime in the 50s. And in this story, there is a housewife whose husband is not at home. And she is listening to the radio. And she hears reports of an alien that has just landed in a nearby park. The radio is saying, we do not think this alien is dangerous, but stay home and stay away from the alien. However, as the radio goes on, the alien starts to talk, and it's talking in her husband's voice, and it's calling out her name. So of course, she has to go see this alien. And you get to meet the alien, and it is a good alien. You get this feeling that, yes, this is not anything like a human creature that has visited this earth. And you also have to ask yourself, reading this story, who is the monster of the title? And why there's a doubt of that? Well, you'll have to read the story. So what prompts does this meet? It obviously meets prompt number 3, translated work. And it will also meet prompt number 8, first contact. Prompt 10, invasion. I don't think there's enough detail in this story to call this an invasion story. But maybe, depending on how people want to read this story. Those are my first three. I'm sure there's more to come. Okay, so I've read a few more short stories for Terrestrial Week. The first was an audiobook, The Eyes Have It by Philip K. Dick, and it was read by our very own Mark at Book Time for Elvis. I will link his video below. And this is a very short story. It may not even be science fiction, but it is a really fun short story to listen to. And I think Mark did an excellent job, and I will give him a hand to take away for reading that short story. Now, the next short story I read was Impediment by Clement. And this was a story written around 1948. And it is a story of aliens visiting Earth. And they are there for a very special purpose. And they need to interact with an Earthling to get what they want. And what Clement does in the story that is just so impressive is that he gives us a very credible alien that is nothing like humans. He describes them roughly as moths. They're some sort of insect, and they have trouble living in Earth's gravity. And they do not communicate the way humans communicate. And in order to get what they want, these aliens, and there's basically two aliens that are described. There's boss and talker, because they really don't have names the way humans have names, and they just have descriptions of what they do. So we have boss and talker, and boss is giving the instructions to talker on how to interact with the humans and how to get to communicate with that human who speaks a language. But these aliens, they don't speak languages the way humans speak languages. They have a totally different method of communication. And that is something that Clement describes very well in this story, because you can see these aliens are truly not of this Earth. They are not Star Trek. They are not Mr. Spock with his ears that can pass for human. These are creatures totally unlike us, and he is describing them in ways that we have to try to understand them. And that's what I really appreciate about this story. It is true science fiction. It is describing a world and a method through science and knowledge of science. And that is what I really liked about this story. Next, I read That Only a Mother by Judith Merrill. And I have it in this paperback anthology. Excuse me. The Science Fiction Hall of Fame, Volume 1. I also downloaded the audio book from a library so I could listen to this short story while I was reading it. And this is a story that was written in the 40s. And it is about a young mother who was pregnant and her husband is away on a war. And this is a war where nuclear weapons are being used. And there's a lot of radiation. And there's a lot of mutations in births. And this woman is very worried about what her child could be. And when it is born, it is utterly, totally, magnificently perfect. And it is the best baby a mother could ever want. And it is a smart baby. It has special talents. It can learn to speak as a 4-year-old when it's only a couple months old. And then the husband, after 18 months, finally comes home to his wife and his magnificent baby. And what does he discover? Well, it's something that only a mother could love. And this is a classic science fiction novel. And I truly enjoyed this. I read this, I think, in college when I was taking a class in science fiction, and we read this short story. And I liked it then, and I liked it now. And I think everyone else could truly enjoy this story. It is a quintessential science fiction story. Now, the last short story I read is going to have to come with a warning. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger, danger. This story is political. Danger, Will Robinson. Okay, I've given you the danger sign. This commentary comes with that warning. I'm going to wander into dangerous territory. I'm going to wander into political territory. This is a short story by Philip K. Dick called The Pre-Persons. I was inspired to read this after listening to Mark at Book Time with Elvis read his The Eyes Have It. And this story is Philip K. Dick's reaction to Roe versus Wade. Okay, danger, danger. I'm talking about Roe versus Wade. And yeah, danger. So in Philip K. Dick's story, there are abortion trucks because abortion has been extended into approximately 12 years. That a person is not a person until they can do advanced mathematics. And that happens about 12 years old. And before that, they are considered pre-persons. And a pre-person can be aborted if the parents don't like their child. They can summon the abortion truck to take that child away, where the air will be sucked out of the child's lungs and killed. Now, the problem with this is that Philip K. Dick really does not understand what abortion is about. He is doing a political reaction, maybe a religious reaction to abortion. And he is constructing a straw man argument because no one that I know of has ever even remotely hinted that abortion should be extended until their 12th year. That is just something that he completely imagined and is an ad absurdum argument. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever in the real world. I'm surprised that the pro-life people have not latched on to this short story as an example of the dastardly thing that those liberals want to do by legalizing abortion. So the story is just totally problematic. It contains this political idea that Philip K. Dick wants to promote. It is just an idea in his head. He has not gathered any evidence to support his theory. In this story, it is told that children under 12 do not have souls until they can do advanced mathematics. But he does not describe the alternative of why that is wrong, saying that at the moment of conception, the soul is implanted into the embryo. It is just a mess of a short story. But actually, I kind of recommend that people read this short story. Mess that it is, danger, political territory that it is, and really not such a great story because it's the entry into the mind of a man who, according to Sean D. Steadfast, really had some psychological troubles. And I can totally believe that. So that is the end of my Terrestrial week for New Worlds November. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.